They got it done and closed out the season. The Kansas City Chiefs have the number 1 seed in the AFC after maybe the toughest week to go to work in the NFL ever. We're going to talk about it all, how it broke down, how they beat the Raiders, and what comes next with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. We are live post-game after the Raiders. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're in full celebration mode now that the Chiefs have secured the number 1 seed in the AFC West. We're brought to you by BetOnline, where you might have actually gotten something done this weekend. Check out all the odds, lines, props, and everything you need. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. Tonight, it comes down to taking care of business. That's kind of been the theme most of the week. It was an enormous hill to climb. We're going to go through all the details with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. I'm also Ryan Tracy from RGR Football, NFL 33, and RogueAPC.com, so check those out. Thanks for making us your first listen. And you can check out the other teams around the league as your next listen from Locked On, your team every day.
A lot to talk about. I just want to mention really quick, because there was a great question in the comments. What happens to home field if Buffalo loses to England? If Buffalo still makes it, Kansas City would host in Kansas City. The only way that it is a neutral site game is if Buffalo wins tomorrow. So there you go. Just want to answer that because that is a great question for going forward in the playoffs. A lot to talk about in this game. Kansas City looked like they were in charge from the get-go and really never let the Raiders get going in this one.
Yeah, to me, there was just a handful of things to nitpick today if you really want to. But by and large, you look at everything across the board. Probably the only thing that I could possibly pick on the Chiefs for, maybe a couple of missed tackles, which we hadn't seen the last few weeks, but really complimentary of the defense. And 8 of 16 on third downs, defense allowing that. That was the only thing I want to see better. But red zone defense, turnovers, you got those. The defensive line absolutely owned this game today. They stopped the run when the Raiders wanted to run the football early, didn't let that going. And certainly took what the Raiders did last week with Jarrett Stidham in this offense and absolutely stifled it. So to me, not a lot of criticism for this defense. It was a complete effort, and offensively, they didn't have to do a whole lot. They did what they needed, efficient, didn't turn the ball over, didn't make any mistakes, which is another thing that this team had been doing. I don't have a lot to say about this performance. It was pretty much what you wanted out of this team today.
Ryan, I got to ask you really, really quick, though. How much of a hard time do you think Trent McDuffie is getting from his boys right now?
He'll get a bit. Absolutely. I mean,
and kudos to Trent for being in position. That's just a hard one when you can't see the guy coming who's trying to knock the ball away. It did follow a rough drive for him. This is one of the things that we've talked about. There's two vulnerabilities when you're the guy in the nickel and you're not L'Jarius Sneed. It is that change of direction. Renfro actually got away from him a few times. I think that's a good learning curve, though. Clearly not a game that it cost him. But Trent McDuffie was about to make up for it with that play. Him and Colin Saunders is the other one, because if Patrick had just one more tick, I think he could have gotten the ball in the back of the end zone. And when Mike Burton is blocking for Colin Saunders, I'm a happy guy.
Come on, Colin, you got to make the adjustment there. And Mahomes, if you're not going to throw back shoulder to the defensive tackle in a spot like that, what are you thinking? I mean, just go ahead.
When I saw the formation, I was sitting there going, who the hell is that in the backfield? And then I noticed who it was. I was like, oh, God, this is going to be fun.
Old 9-9. That is a good time. Well, and it brings us to a topic we're going to cover in the next segment, folks. I know you want to hear about Snow Globe. We will get there. But all of those things aside, of these little intricacies, to echo what you said, Matt, I felt like this was the most complete game this team has played all season. And it came at the right time. Obviously, it came against a foe that we thought was going to put up a bit more of a fight. They had the rushing record or season total for Josh Jacobs they were trying to get. Clearly, Stidham had a great game last week. Chiefs defense came out, shut them down. Spags was on fire with the safety blitzes early. I think that worked. And then he was able to back off and not really risk that down the stretch. So I'll start with you, Matt. Does that make it the most complete game we've seen from this team?
I'm going to put it amongst them. I mean, I probably have to handicap a little bit for the opponent. I mean, I'd probably still say that the 49ers game, even when they were a little bit banged up, was the best overall performance this team's had. And there's a handful of other games when they were absolutely on. I mean, Arizona right out of the box. I mean, that was a dominating performance too. There've been a handful of them. I mean, I know this team's been, nicked a little bit about the fact that it plays too many close games, but they've had a few times this season that they put the hammer down. They put some teams away. This one was another good example, though. I mean, it could have been a lot worse than 31-13 if the Chiefs really wanted to push it up and down the field. But honestly, I mean, the first couple of positions, they did what they wanted to. They didn't feel the need to take a lot of chances. I know, hey, 4th and short and plus territory hit that spot. Maybe that's a good position to go for it. But as I said on social media, that's what desperate teams do. You don't give a team like the Raiders life by, taking a chance there. You pin them deep like what Tommy Townsend did. You play defense, you get the ball in good position, you take advantage of it. That's what championship teams do. So I felt like it was good decision-making all around in this game. And once they set the tone and took advantage of it, I mean, this game was over at halftime. And there was nothing in the second half that changed anything whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point, Matt. I just have to say, because if you go for it there and they get stopped, then you're in a situation where you give the Raiders momentum and it could change the swing of the game. You don't give them any chances in this game. So I really like the play call, punting there, even though I know a lot of people really wanted to go for it on 4th down early in the game. But I thought it was a great job by Reed to decide to give his punter a chance to do what he did. And then Townsend goes through and just punts the crap out of the ball every time he had a chance to punt. I mean, 59 yards, 62 yards were 2 of his punts, another one inside the 20 that was caught by Lamont. So he did a fantastic job punting all afternoon.
Yeah, and the Chiefs showed plenty of creativity in this game without doing what I would have said was the problem, what they needed to do coming into this game. They needed a clean game. They didn't need any mistakes. And I think they called it and executed it that way. Like I said, even though there was some creativity that they showed at times and they took some calculated risks, they didn't take any crazy chances. And I think that was a big part of the strategy. They wanted to be able to have a game where they didn't make any mistakes in special teams, that they were conservative in that standpoint, that they didn't, commit any offensive mistakes, that give the other teams some momentum, that they executed things cleanly on defense. And that's what this team needed. It needed a clean performance, no bad luck, nothing that's going to come in there and, one bad play like you had against the Broncos and all of a sudden, 14 points are on the board and the game changes around. This time around, just they limited their exposure, which I think is a good thing to do in a situation like this, and just put the Raiders away and had a clean game. And I think I said, considering that you've got 2 weeks until your next contest, that's what this team wanted to go out on. They did not want to have anything hanging over their head about, well, you know what, we were really bad in this area, or that fumble really cost us, or this special teams miscue was, going to sit with somebody. Nobody on this team should be hanging their head for the next 2 weeks.
No, it sets them up well. Now they've earned the bye week. And I know there's a lot of discussion. We'll talk about Hamlin. We'll talk about Snow Globe on the backside of this. This is a word from our friends over at PrizePicks, our newest sponsor that gives you daily fantasy sports in a unique way. All you had to do for this ball game, I think the line was set pregame. It does vary from day to day, but it's around 320.5. If you chose the less when you made your pick, you won because Patrick didn't have to do a whole lot of work in this one. He comes in at 202. So if you pick the less, you put 2 to 5 of those entries together, you have a complete entry. You can put that in. There's no lineups. There's no head-to-head. It's not musical chairs. It's just more or less on 2 to 5 players, and you can win 10 times your entry amount. They even had some good commercials on the broadcast today. I think some of you saw as well. Check out PrizePicks. You can play any sport that you like. There's all kinds of Euro basketball and disc golf and all kinds of things that aren't NFL, but we know you're here for the NFL. It's easy, safe, fast, under 60 seconds or less, and it's in 30 states plus California. Plus Canada. California is one of them. But it's easy. Go to prizepicks.com or go get the PrizePicks app in any app store. Sign up for daily fantasy sports, and with our code Locked On, you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So if you put in $100, they'll give you an extra $100 that you can make your entries with. Check them out. That's code Locked On at prizepicks.com. Now, after you make that, you might want to go back and check the film on this ball game. because there were a couple of unique things. There's one play in particular that stood out to me that, Matt, I think what we're seeing is we've been waiting. Now a couple of wrinkles come out. I really liked, we'll talk about the big play here in a second, but I like the fact that they got the wheel to Watson off the start, get him started, a guy that came back and had another near catch later, but a guy that's also had some struggles catching the ball. I thought that was a good plan in the first 15. And then the jet sweep action to Tony. I think these are two guys that are going to have to play a role in the postseason, that now they were able to get them rolling, and that's going to pay dividends. Even though they get the extra week off, I think they'll still have a little momentum. What did you like about those two?
Yeah, I really liked the deep ball to Watson there, because you're right. That was a very well scripted play for the opening sequence, because he's not the guy you expect that to go to. There's other targets, and you know that in a specific, a spot like that, Watson's probably going to be lightly covered, not going to have a safety over the top. I mean, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup. So they isolated, Watson pretty well there. It was a well-run route. I mean, executed all the way across the board. I mean, that was an Andy Reid play of, using a play design to take the action away from the target, make the target a little bit less obvious, and then the guy executes. So, to me, that really set the tone, certainly put the Chiefs in the great situation right there. And the way that, to me, that they used Kadarius Tony today, I think it was almost window dressing to a degree. This was Andy Reid putting, a half dozen plays on tape with Tony that he wants people in the postseason to be worrying about, and especially since you're going to be bringing Mecole Hardman back and teams are going to have to worry about that too. This is just, more candy. It's more eye candy for that teams and defenses are going to have to pay attention to and work on when they're getting ready for the Chiefs. And I mean, certainly they got the options. And on top of that, with Andy Reid, there's variations on the options. So the next time you see these formations and you see these plays and you see Tony in those spots, guess what? Ball's going somewhere else next time. You're not going to see the same thing. Andy Reid's just cooking that up, but he's showing those looks and he's putting some things out there. He's showing a little bit of leg to some defensive coordinators so that later on he can hit them in a different way.
And the thing I like about that the most is you get Kadarius Tony involved in the offense, doing different things, and you get him on the field, getting him comfortable in the offense. And you said it yourself, Matt. You're absolutely right. Mecole Hardman coming back is going to be huge for this offense. I still think having Sky Moore back is also going to be helpful because he can do different things than some of these other guys can as well. And when you have all of those guys going, you're going to be in a great situation. Without Mecole Hardman on the field, without Sky Moore on the field, Mahomes still hit 8 different people today for positive plays. And the thing that sticks out to me the most is, yes, he got a TD to Jerick McKinnon. What a play by him on that, and just, ad-libbing. Congratulations on that. All the running backs got a touchdown too.
Yeah, pretty crazy. But this was exactly, where we said the strength of this offense had to be in 2022 for this team to succeed. When you lose Tyreek Hill, it was going to have to be a deeper wide receiver room, and it was going to have to be a group effort. And they haven't always had that sometimes, and certainly injuries have been a part of it. I mean, you still don't have Mecole Hardman being there. But that's the crazy thing, and especially with the bye week, and you're going to give all these guys a little bit of time to rest up. Andy Reid will give these players a little bit of time to get away. They'll give them a couple of extra days this week, but they're going to come back early. And you got to think that, with a little bit of extra practice time getting ready for the divisional round, they'll be able to get and incorporate Mecole Hardman in there. But now you're really talking about going into the playoffs is the first time that the Chiefs are going to have what they see as their 6 best receivers on the field at the same time. And that's going to be a problem for defenses to deal with in the postseason. And if they execute it well, it's going to be an advantage. But the fact that you could have that deep of a receiver group in a room, and then you add in the tight ends and you add in the running backs, I mean, this offense to me seems to be in position to be clicking at the exact right time.
Yeah, and that's all that you can ask for. With all 3 running backs getting in the end zone one way or the other, that's a nice addition as well. Still don't think the mix changes unless we hear something different, but we'll get to that. The big thing was that they got this trick play out there, and there's a number of reasons why you do that. It's been called snow glove by Patrick Mahomes, right, Matt? Do I have that right?
Snow globe, at least, is the ring around the rosy circle. Yeah.
Okay. That said, that's one distraction. But then the fact that you start Wildcat, go back to Patrick, and then it's to Tony, I think that is a play that has so many layers on it, and like you were talking about before, has so many variations you can use off of it, that sets the foundation. There's two things that I want to know from you, Matt, and then we'll see what Chris thinks. Is that more than just a distraction? And who came up with that snow globe huddle?
I haven't found out for sure yet. At least the first indication I've gotten is that is a player originated concept, and that certainly makes sense to me. I mean, last few years, I mean, you've seen Mahomes and the receivers and everybody during practice. They'll be working on things, especially on Fridays when there's a little bit of free time, and while other guys are working on some other things, you'll see the skill position players getting together and okay, what can we come up with? And usually it's celebrations. But they come up with some things for, pre-snap too and whatnot. So I would imagine that was a player-initiated concept, but pairing it with that play, we'll see. Like I said, I don't know if with 100% certainty that Andy Reid knew about the going around in the circle huddle. Maybe he did. My understanding is that he didn't, but if that was the player's decision to pair it with that, I mean, that's just fantastic. I mean, it is a little bit of, disguise. I mean, certainly it's a way to to me, it's no different than when you see the Cincinnati Bengals just rush up to the line of scrimmage and try to make sure you don't know where Jamar Chase is lining up. And the Chiefs have done it before. I mean, the Rose Bowl play was, similar concept. It's anything that you can do to distract the defense and to get them off guard. And the thing is that, that's not the only trick this team has up its sleeve. They love working on these kind of things. So they got something else that they can pull out at a certain time, but you're right. I mean, using it today was probably a little bit of just having some fun in week 18 and trying to loosen everybody up with what was an absolutely tight week. But you throw that out there too, and it's always going to make defenses going forward. You got to keep your eyes on this team even pre-snap.
I think the three of us should try that when we're next together. So we'll see if we can stand up.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a good idea. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I get dizzy and fall down. So
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. What I will say, though, is it didn't – even if Andy Reid didn't know that they were going to throw that snow globe, ring around the rosy, whatever you want to call it, that huddle in there, he didn't seem to care. He seemed happy. He seemed to chuckle on the sideline. He really seemed to like it, and that's why players love playing for Andy Reid, because he lets them be themselves. He lets them do some things that are maybe a little bit outside the norm. And I know we already talked about the running backs. I just want to say really quick, I have appreciated what Jerick McKinnon has brought to this team the entire season. But one thing that I really appreciate even more about him that you continue to see week in and week out is if Mahomes is running and McKinnon is anywhere near, he is trying to lay the wood. And you love seeing that from probably one of the smallest guys on the roster.
To me, that's one of the most amazing things to me about Jerick McKinnon. I mean, it's something that does come with being around as long as he has. And certainly I think it comes with even going through a lot of the hardships that he's gone through, is that he gets it. The way you succeed and the way you keep playing at this level in the NFL when you're 30 years old and you're Jerick McKinnon, and the reason that teams want to keep you around and pay you is that this is a guy who never quits ever. He plays all the way to the whistle. I have never seen that guy take a second off in any play. He is always trying. And when you've got a quarterback like Mahomes, that's how you have to play football, because he never lets a play end. So he's always playing to the whistle. So, I mean, we've seen it with some guys. If you don't do that, you're gonna leave some plays on the field. Jerick McKinnon doesn't leave a single ounce on the field. He plays all the way, and his patience, especially on a couple of those plays, one with the block and two with the touchdown catch, those are just remarkable, plays that a lot of guys don't make.
Yeah, I have to say, strategically, I think there's a question there. I think we'll cover that this week, Matt, when you are back with us on Wednesday. But we got to talk about who else stood out here and who gets our game balls. That's coming up next. I know some of you guys are asking questions in the chat about the neutral site and everything entailed in that. We'll get to that in a second. But this word from our friends at BetOnline, because if you want to get in the game, it's the number one spot for all the info, stats, news, and analysis that you need to get your money into the action. It's the latest trends, all the things with amateur leagues, all the way up to the NFL, college, CFP championship game is coming. You still have time to get into that, as well as all the other sports that maybe not the top of the list for everyone, but they are for you. If you love sports podcasts as well, you can find it on BetOnline. They're the fastest, easiest way to get all your betting info. Head to their website today and use your mobile device or anything that you can get there. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, for starting this next one, I think there's a lot of celebration today. Kudos to my guy, Rex Ryan, for being real on the pregame broadcast. Damar Hamlin is awake and tweeting things and on Instagram. Like, this is a cause for celebration. I think that might have fed into some of what the players did today, but I think there's reason to celebrate the fact that the Chiefs have secured the number 1 seed. It is partly due to what happened to Damar Hamlin. But it also comes back to you have to go take care of business. Now, no matter what happens, there's a possibility the Chiefs could play a neutral site game should they make the AFC Championship game, particularly against the Buffalo Bills. Is that a problem, Matt? Do you think for this team, what they showed today in being able to go to Vegas and bring it all?
Well, and, what resonates to me is what, Andy Reid told the broadcast crew today, which was that he doesn't care about that. They'll play the AFC Championship game in a McDonald's parking lot if they have to.
Right.
That is Andy Reid's mentality, that, they'll play a football game anywhere that they need to. The important thing to remember, too, is also that this win eliminates a lot of scenarios in that regard now. Bills have to win tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There's a question about a Bills tie, but let's just leave that out of the equation for the moment. If the Bills lose tomorrow for sure, the road to the Super Bowl goes through Arrowhead. So all of this machinations over the last 48 hours don't matter whatsoever if the Bills lose tomorrow. So let's see what happens. And then, you know what? You've got 2 more weeks of games to determine what's going to happen. At that point, there's going to be 5 other teams in the AFC that if they make it through and the Chiefs make it to the AFC Championship game, still going to be at Arrowhead. So to me, as a Chiefs fan, there's not a lot of reasons to get worked up over it right now. Wait to see how it plays out, because you just never know. The Chiefs took care of what they needed to today. And the fact that they did, it was a big deal. And I'm glad you brought up the Damar Hamlin situation, because I think there was another reason why Andy Reid was smiling when he saw his team running that snow globe play, because I think that, there was the concept that there wasn't going to be a lot of people having fun this week in the NFL, that you were going to see guys playing with heavy hearts and just not really excited to be out there on the field. And the moment that Andy Reid, I think, saw his team having fun, that was a big deal. So to me, I think that was probably when Andy Reid finally got relaxed and realized that his team was in the right mindset going forward.
And Ryan, you and I talked about this a lot on Friday's show about not knowing how this team was going to come in and play, because we didn't know how are any of the teams going to come in and play after this Hamlin injury. And they came out and they played, and they took care of their business. They took care of their business, and they did it well. And I wasn't sure that Snead would play. I wasn't sure that Joe Thuney would play. Both those guys had big games. Devontae Adams had 5 catches for 73 yards. You can easily live with that in this going against this Raiders team. I don't care who the QB is. You can live with 5 catches for 73 yards from Devontae Adams.
Yeah. I was. I mean, sorry, Ryan. I was a little surprised at the way the Chiefs did tackle Adams. I thought that even with L'Jarius Sneed banged up a little bit, they might shadow him a little bit more and put some attention on him, and they really didn't do that. I mean, it was really more. It looked like driven by just scheme and formation. I mean, they weren't really too concerned about making sure that L'Jarius is in one spot, but they did give him still plenty of attention with some additional help to the corner and everything. So that helped. But also, I think a big part of it is that the Raiders didn't do anything that surprised the Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs defense and Steve Spagnuolo were completely prepared for the Raiders to come out and try and run the football with Josh Jacobs and use that play action that was so effective last week. And the play action didn't work this week. Chiefs didn't fall for it the way the 49ers did, because they saw it on film, and there was no way that was going to work a second time around.
And that's what I think what they did with the Chiefs offense, putting things on film now. There's a whole lot of study that has to go into it. It is about performances. A couple of guys that stood out to me real quick before we get to game balls. I thought Brian Cook put in a lot of good snaps this time. He was down in the robber in the middle. He took that Tampa 2 middle role, so they didn't have to drop Nick Bolton out where he got caught once. He played high as well. I thought Juan Thornhill came up, obviously, with a couple of big plays, a couple of misses. Overall, the volume of safety blitzes was really up. I think Spags really felt that this trio of safeties is coming into their own, and he had to light them up a little bit. How did you feel about their play, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just a brilliant way to be able to, to limit a offense that's going to rely on those, play action passes, because that offense needs time to throw the football, and if you're going to bring the blitzes, you don't have that time. And there were plenty of moments and plenty of opportunities when the Chiefs were bringing those safety blitzes and bringing the pressure, and really didn't give any time to develop for the Raiders offense. So I think there was a well-intentioned, designed defensive plan for this game.
The thing I really liked was the defensive line kept getting after the Raiders. And I know the Raiders don't have a great offensive line, but to see the pass rush and for the pass rush to continue to get home and continue to put pressure, especially considering they lost Frank Clark early in the game. He wasn't able to come back in. He went out with an injury. Hopefully he'll be ready for the divisional game when they get a chance to play in a couple of weeks. Really quick on records, though, Matt, I got to give props to your boy, Nick Bolton, Chiefs all-time leader in tackles. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that for a second?
Yeah, he ended up with 16 tackles today, so that gets him up to 181 on the year. Derek Johnson had the record for 179. Now I can go off on tackles, because tackles are records in the NFL are one of the absolute biggest messes that there is. First of all, there's like no official records before 1994. And even then, they're not really official after 1994. The NFL didn't start forcing teams to use NFL numbers for tackles until like 2012. So we don't know how many tackles and assisted tackles that, all those Hall of Fame defenders that the Chiefs had in the 60s that played forever, had. They might have had 200 tackles in a season. Who knows? But that said, Nick Bolton, 181 tackles is remarkable in a 17-game season. In a 16-game season, give Derek Johnson his props, but the NFL doesn't care if it's 14, 16, or 17. Nick Bolton's got the record.
The other record that fell was Mahomes passed Drew Brees for the number one number in yards from scrimmage for a single player in NFL history in a season. And he ended up with, 241 yards. I'm not sure where that puts him in total, but it's over Drew Brees. I know he was over there basically by half, right?
Yeah, he cruised him with a little bit of room to spare and everything. Doesn't get the Manning record. 17-game season, he's going to crush that at some point too in his career, and he's probably going to break this record again as well for total offense in a season. But hey, that's a pretty cool deal for Mahomes. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So does he get your game ball is the question, Matt. Let's start with you.
Hey, I'm going to start with giving Patrick Mahomes my game ball. I mean, it was a very pedestrian performance. 202 yards, 1 touchdown. He had a couple of the scrambles and for first downs, those were big plays. So give him the 29 yards rushing as well. But hey, this was a game when you needed your star quarterback to make the plays that he did, your MVP quarterback to make the plays that he did. He had this team and this offense in the right frame of mind. The touchdown to McKinnon, it's a play nobody else in the league makes. That's not nobody else does that. He had a few of those game plays again in this game, and everybody takes. I've said it before. We take it for granted too many times. There's plenty of times each week that the three of us give our game balls to somebody besides Mahomes when he's got like 340 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception, and he's still probably the best player on the field.
Yeah, because we expect it, and that's
exactly. We expect greatness from this guy. So this is a week where it's not the numbers that impress me; it's the fact that he had this team ready in the right mood in one of the toughest weeks to play in the NFL ever.
Yep. And they did what they had to do. Regardless, they went out and they won, and they locked up the number 1 seed. You can say whatever you want about whether or not they deserve the number 1 seed. That's in the past. At this point, Kansas City did what they needed to do. Ryan, who's your game ball go to?
It's real easy. It's the best guy on the field tonight was Chris Jones, and it's pretty clear. He raises the level of the defensive line. I think they all feed off of him. Derek Nottie trying to give him oxygen on the sideline, I think is hilarious because, yes, he had to take a couple extra breaths, but he was whooping everybody out there. And here's the bigger thing for me. You saw another uptick in performance from George Karlaftis. A couple of times where he had to chase Stidham out to the sidelines. I think that all comes from Chris Jones. The hustle that you see when he does have an explosive play, I think, is what feeds this whole defensive line. They need it going into the postseason. So cheers to Chris Jones. He gets mine.
Yeah, and I loved Karlaftis actually imitated Chris Jones's signature wave goodbye. It was great. I don't know if you all saw that, but that was I love that. I'm going to go outside the box on this one, and I'm going to do it because I think that you look at the performance of this team and just the way that they came in, the way that they looked prepared from the get-go. That all goes back to the head coach. I'm giving my game ball to Andy Reid. I thought he called a brilliant game early on. You can question some of the calls in the second half if you want to, but he had them ready to go in, as you said, Matt, one of the toughest situations to come back and play, especially the first game back after that injury. And to know that you're playing for the number 1 seed and you're playing against a division rival that has nothing to play for, you could have come out and you could have just laid an egg, and they didn't do that. So my game ball is going to Andy Reid.
There's plenty to go around. We'd like to know who you guys think should get it. Leave your comments below. And in the reviews at Spotify and Apple, we appreciate your time. Check out the Locked On NFL show because you want to get all the game-to-game action. I'll have my review tonight. It'll be locked together with everybody's here today, so don't miss that. Matt, thank you for your time. Go ahead.
I have a quick question because somebody put this in the chat, and I want to know both of your opinions. Kadarius Tony, most talented wide receiver they have right now?
I will say he's the most toolsy wide receiver they have right now.
I'll put him 2 behind Juju, and obviously not counting Travis Kelce. There are times in my notes tonight where Tony needs to make a cut and get vertical. There's a little too much dancing around. I think that's going to come, though, but he clearly is the most explosive that they have by far.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun to watch. And when you add in Mecole Hardman and the speed that he's going to bring and add in Sky Moore and the ability for the wide receivers to mix things up and to keep everybody fresh, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this offense in the playoffs. Sorry, I just want to know your guys' thoughts on that because Tony is starting to look like he could really be a steal for Kansas City, considering they really traded for him looking at next year, not necessarily even this year, but this year's more of a bonus than what they're expecting for next year.
Yeah, that's very true. And this week, while yours are looking, Matt will be back on Wednesday. We're going to break down reps, stats, etc. this week. If you want to take a quick look ahead to the draft, check out NFL 33. I'm going to have my top 5 offensive tackles up there this week. A lot going on draft-wise prep. And I'm going to be live on RGR here in a few minutes. So come get that, and I'll give you all my notes. Matt, thank you for your time tonight. I know post-game's always fun, but hey, we'll see you again on Wednesday.
And just so everybody knows, those are my limited edition collectible R2-D2 and Chewbacca coffee creamers. So that's
Star
limited
Wars
edition
flex.
Collectibles right there. That's not trash, people.
Star Wars flex. I like it.
That over there are my messy files. That's fair game.
Yeah, okay. We'll put a sheet over those or something. Folks, thanks for pointing out the fun stuff. Hope you enjoy this victory, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.